Furman and Christopher White. I believe Christopher White may have resigned. So we have two citizen positions that are open. Just a few chairman's remarks. The audit committee has the charge, and we'll cover this later, of selecting the city's auditor and running the process by which the city's auditor is selected. Our audit engagements tend to run several years at a time. But that scope of work was created by the council 2 terms ago. 3 terms ago, the audit committee was created with much broader powers. And the scope of work was reduced. The audit committee does have a role also if financials come in from the auditor and there are questions or concerns, and the audit committee is envisioned as a group that can use their financial expertise to work with the auditors and make recommendations to the council. So, Councilor Morrell, city manager, I've got that wrong, let me know, but that's my recollection. And so one of our citizen members, our only citizen member, Don, asked us for a status update. And so we decided, 3 councilors and the city manager, that we should convene the audit committee. So we will, from here, live and in person, figure out our next steps as an audit committee. And we'll start that off by reviewing the FY24 audit with CLA. This was shared with council in January, but it's a chance for us to meet with the auditors via Zoom and go over what that audit found, both the annual comprehensive financial report and the management letter. My reading of the management letter is it's pretty strong as an audit, but we welcome, Don, your opinion as a lifelong person in finance and banking industry. But before we get that underway with that, we do have some old minutes to approve. Has everyone had a chance to read those? And welcome a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So why don't we turn to CLA and gentlemen.
Great. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Matthew Hunt. I'm a signing director with Clifton Larson Allen, otherwise known as CLA. Joining me here today, if any questions come up, and he's integrally involved in the audit, is Phil Wong, whose microphone or his camera is turned upside down. I would have thought that would have been interesting as well, Nathan, to have somebody upside down during the meeting, but unfortunately Phil's not playing along. But happy here to discuss, as mentioned, we did present the fiscal year 2024 audit in January, but just sort of as a refresh, figured we'd also do a bit of a brief summary of the FY24 audit and also open it up for any questions as well. So bear with me while I attempt to put this on the screen. Does everybody see the presentation file?
We do now,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Okay, great. Then without further ado, let's go through. Again, this is just a brief sort of summary presentation. Happy to open it up for any questions. But basically what we're going to go over is sort of a high level executive summary of the audit, the objectives of the audit, and what the results were. We'll also go through a couple of financial highlights associated with the annual comprehensive financial report. We'll also do a summary of the management letter, and like I said, open it up for any questions that anybody has. So looking at the audit from sort of a 30,000-foot view, an overall executive summary, when it comes to the financial statements, the most important part from our perspective as your auditors is the very sort of front portion of the report. There's a section for the auditors, independent auditors report, in which we opine on the financial statements. So happy to report that the city's FY24 financial statements contain what we call unmodified opinions. That is the best opinion that you can receive in an external audit of your financial statements. And what that essentially means is that through the course of our audit procedures, we did not identify any material misstatements to the city's financial statements. Another key portion of our audit is, even though we don't present an opinion, are not required to present an opinion on your internal controls, we do look into your internal controls as a basis for designing our audit procedures. And in the course of doing so, there may be things that come up that need to be reported to the city. Again, happy to report that for FY24, there were no what we refer to as significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls. Basically, for all intents and purposes, when you talk about significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls, those are areas in which the internal control weakness will more than likely than not, or could, there's a high probability that internal control weakness will lead to a misstatement in the financial statements. We did not identify any internal control weaknesses that fall within that category. Another part of a governmental audit is that we have to perform various procedures related to compliance with laws and regulations, contracts, things of that nature. And we also did not come across, during the course of the FY24 audit, we did not come across any compliance findings to report. In terms of some summary financial statement numbers, want to focus on your general fund and your enterprise funds, and also your long-term liabilities. So as you'll see in this slide here, there's a comparison of some of the key items related to your general fund. You'll see that unassigned fund balance, which is basically the portion of your general fund balance that is not restricted or committed or assigned for other purposes, that unassigned fund balance did go up slightly from the previous year. Total fund balance, however, did go down slightly. As you'll see, there was a net change in fund balance of about $2.8 million. The primary reason for that is there was some fairly heavy usage of fund balance to fund various activities in FY24. But again, that unassigned fund balance did go up, and then unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your annual budget was also fairly consistent with the previous year, 13.65 versus 13.72. And again, total fund balance as a percentage of budget did go down slightly, but really that unassigned fund balance is a key number that did not change significantly. In terms of your long-term liabilities, there's really three key or larger long-term liabilities that tend to be highlighted by uses of the financial statements. Your city's long-term debt outstanding as of FY24 was approximately $295 million, up from the previous year. There was some long-term debt issued in FY24 for various projects. Your overall pension liability did go down slightly from about $113 million to approximately $110 million. And then same thing with your other post-employment benefits liability, a slight decrease there to $16.7 million. A few more financial highlights with your enterprise funds. Looking at your water enterprise fund, standing out here again, it's just some slight increases to your long-term debt liability. Your pension liability went up slightly. OPEB liability decreased slightly. Overall net position fairly consistent with the previous year, and also consistent with the previous year, you did experience a positive increase in your net position of about $1.2 million. Similar results for the sewer enterprise fund. Long-term liabilities up slightly, pension liability up slightly, OPEB liability with a bit of a small decrease. And again, overall net position in a very strong position, similar to the previous year, about $85 million, and an overall increase in net position for the sewer enterprise fund of about $3 million. Lastly, and then we can open it up for any questions that anybody has, talk about the management letter. there was, again, this is not considered to be significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. This is just something that we came across that we wanted to report to management. As a little bit of a background, our firm has information technology specialists that we do utilize as part of our audits. It's not a full-fledged IT audit that we do. It's really just more of a supporting aspect of the financial statement audit, where we have our IT specialists look into various aspects of the city's information technology as it relates to your financial transactions. One thing to keep in mind with the management letter this year is that in the previous year, there were about, I think, 5 particular management letter recommendations that we had related to information technology from FY23. We identified in FY24 that all 5 of those recommendations were implemented. So the city did a great job of taking those recommendations seriously and implementing them. But then when we did our work for FY24, we came across something that we hadn't identified in FY23, and that was the fact that there were some operating systems being utilized by the city that were deemed to be, quote unquote, out of service operating systems. What that basically means is, as you know, there's upgrades to various types of software, et cetera. If you're using software that is out of date, you're not getting customer support. You're also not getting security updates. So there's some security vulnerabilities that come about when that is the case. And you'll see in the management letter that the city management provided a detailed response as to how they were going to go about tackling that particular area. So that's really a summary of the management letter comment for FY24. And so now I'd like to just open it up for any questions that anybody has.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. I'd just add that I visited the team during their first audit, and they had a 3-person team, I think, that you had on site.
That sounds about right.
Yep, did them with work papers all around them, deep into it. This was, CLA was a change in auditing firm. We'd had Melanson for many years. Melanson was not the choice of this committee to go forward. One reason was that they were undergoing a merger. But I just thought I'd add that color because I think it was because you were a new auditing firm. They really did a pretty deep dive. But questions? John?
How many funds are there? Is it just 3? There's more than that, right?
2 to 10.
In the entire city, there's many more than that, yes.
So your first financial report that showed in 2024 there was a decline in fund balance. That's a collection of all those other smaller funds?
That particular, in my presentation, that change, that fund that had a decrease in fund balance was just the general fund.
Just the general fund.
Yes.
What's the perspective on all those, summary of all those other funds?
On all other funds that are reported in the financial
What
statement?
about water and sewer? Because we just saw that.
And your question is, what is my perspective on them?
Yeah, well, you had a decline in the general fund balance.
Correct.
And as I heard you say, that monies was used to fund other operations within the city. Correct?
The reason for the net decrease in fund balance was, and I'd have to pull up the financial statements to get more detail, and maybe Nathan could speak to it. My recollection is, and if you look at the budget to actual statement of the financial statements, I don't have a page number reference. I'd have to pull up the financials. But basically what you'll see in FY24 is there was a significant use of fund balance for various items. In that use of fund balance as part of, obviously your budget process, there are revenues that you account for, but then there's also certain expenses in certain items in which you actually are using your retained earnings, for lack of a better term, your fund balance to help fund various items. That was the sort of the key reason why your general fund balance went down in FY24, was the city used a good amount of fund balance to fund various items.
Chairman, can I provide clarification? I believe
City manager comment.
that this comes because, Matt, this is separate and apart from unassigned fund balance. This would be in the committed or assigned fund balances. So we had planned expenditures in those committed or assigned fund balances that were decreased year over year. So I just want to say it was deliberate, it was intentional, it was a planned use of fund balances that were assigned or committed to a specific use.
We also had a $500,000 extra, what do we call it? Supplemental. And for litigation costs related to McIntyre, that was the last of those. And then we had a significant chunk for collective bargaining.
Correct.
For what?
Collective bargaining, to get our
Yeah.
public safety salaries and wages up to competitive levels. I think that was 650. So there's $1.125 that was extraordinary.
What is OBP liability?
I could jump in on that. What it stands for is other post-employment benefits. So for all intents and purposes, the majority of OPEB benefits are retirees' health insurance. So pension is separate. That's, retirement benefits. That's its own separate world. And then there's the OPEB benefits, which are benefits given to retirees other than pension, again, primarily retiree health insurance.
So
And so what happens in that audit?
Long-term paying for insurance for
It's,
retirees.
what I would say is, it is related to the insurance of retirees, but the majority of the liability that you see, the city doesn't extend benefits into retirement for folks, but people have the privilege to remain under the plans that the city has for its active employees, and their annual premiums, the annual rates are established. We are rated for all folks, active employees and retirees. And if you can leap to the intuitive, the retiree population ends up sicker, having greater health costs. Their claims are greater. As a result, they have the effect of influencing our rates to be higher than they might have by a little bit. But the accounting standards mandates that we tease out what that little bit is, and then actuarially estimate what the impact is on health insurance premiums over the period of the future that we can project. That's what that OPEB liability is predominantly that you see. So it's not that we're providing health insurance for everybody in retirement. It's that they are maybe having an impact on our rates, and we have to report that.
I didn't read this and you haven't mentioned it. So the city of Portsmouth, does it participate in the New Hampshire School Healthcare Fund?
We participate in two pools.
Yeah.
The city participates with Health Trust, which is a risk pool for health insurance. And the school department participates with a group called School Care,
Yeah.
which is another risk pool for their health insurance and dental.
Both of which are gonna require some payment into their fund.
It's a great observation. We have talked, the school board is aware that on the school side, there is an assessment that has been charged by School Care for their rates. And that's a $1.5 million assessment. On the city side, Health Trust, as has been reported, has taken the action to intentionally avoid assessments to collect dollars. They are instead adding a capital reserve charge to the annual rate increases, 5.3% additional rate increase that's about trying to gather up more reserves.
So paying it back over
So
time.
paying it back over time instead of an assessment all at once, yes.
Should we also touch on our healthcare stabilization fund?
Sure. We have established by policy many years back, healthcare stabilization reserve, which is a fund, which is a reserve that was established to manage the highs and lows of health coverage. Each year by policy, both the city side and the school side budget for an increase that is a 10-year rolling average of the rate of increase of premiums. And those amounts are contributed on the first day of the new fiscal year to the reserve. And then the reserve essentially covers the costs during the year. And in some cases by department on the school side or the city side, there are shortfalls or savings, if you will, and the fund manages to cover that or retain that. And that fund sits as we started fiscal 25, as we started fiscal year 26 that we're in, it was carrying a balance of just about $7 million.
That smooths out we don't get sudden jerks up in healthcare pricing
Right.
because of that. Got a cushion that aside.
And Hinco did something like that for the sewer. I mean, isn't that how we balance the cost of the effect of the sewer treatment plant to some regard?
We manage a water and sewer rate model similarly, right?
Yep.
And we'll be talking about that later this fall.
Right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Years before the $91 million sewer plant, the city started gradually raising rates to create a surplus. And we're spending that surplus now on our debt service.
Got it.
Any other question?
This is dumb, but does that include the school department? Does the fund include schools?
The schools are contained, yes, in the entire report.
Okay,
Yep, they are a department. They're part of the general fund, just like the legal department or the finance department
And fire and police.
and fire and police. Yep.
I would add one more question. I think we've all seen what's happened in Claremont and recently in Concord. School budgets that suddenly had large gaps in funding. And in the case of Claremont, it sounded like the city would see surplus and they would reduce taxes without quite looking at what their future costs were going to be, and they got caught with a shortfall. Is there any risk of anything like that happening in what you're seeing in how we manage our school spending?
No, as part of our audit, we have not come across any risks associated with the budgeting process or any risks associated with overspending of the budget. That has not been something that we've identified as part of our audits. Keep in mind, the fiscal year 2025 audit is still in progress. We're in the early stages of it. But in the 2 full years that we've audited, we have not come across or identified any issues related to the budgeting process or the overspending of budgets, et cetera.
And I guess I would just follow on with Nathan, for those of us who are taxpayers in the room, what do we have in place so that outcome doesn't happen? How do we do it more safely?
Well, I think one significant difference between the situation here and the one that you've seen reported in Claremont is that our city and school are a single entity, and the school's spending is all part of the city's ongoing daily analysis. I appreciate Andrew Pergel in the finance office having said to me multiple times over the last couple of years of transition, and even when I was with the school department, everything comes through city cash. Every dollar that's spent, there is no separate checkbook. The dollars all come through, and as a result, the city is monitoring and present for each transaction. And what you'll see in Claremont is that the school department is so separate from the community that it's only on irregular reporting basis that the city identifies where the school department is at, or school district is at in that case. And they're not afforded the same luxury that we are. We are today in two separate databases, but we log in and we look at each of them on a daily basis. The funds flow through purchasing and accounts payable, paying the dollars. Those are all reviewed on a regular basis for the school department, just like they are for any other departments of the city. So there isn't that gap. One of the other elements I think that's really important, and we're here today having that conversation, is as I've seen it reported, whether it's, I've seen it reported, so as much as that's good, that there had been a gap in completion of audits annually in Claremont at the school department. And so they have had a school district, sorry, they have had transition in the space. So not all of the same leadership has been in place for multiple years, but there is not a standing audit report that you can bring back on in recent years. And that's certainly something that we would never let happen here, so.
I mean, we probably all read the same stuff.
Right.
I read, what got to me was that it seemed to me that part of the problem was, as you said, disconnect between administration and school boards. And that the school board wasn't forceful enough to asking for, where's the information and what are we doing about it? And then come to find out there's some misaccounting. Certain expenses. Is that right?
Yes, there was another example less than 10 years ago in Goffstown, where again, there was communication and there had been audits, but in the transition of information from school district over to the township, there was a growing fund balance that had never been applied to taxes. And how that happened or why is a matter of, history, I guess, but they ultimately identified, for a community of much smaller scale and dollar, they were carrying a $9 million surplus on the school side that had been reported, but it had never been applied as an offset against ongoing taxation in the community. And folks, that's a much better problem to have than the one that they have in Claremont. Obviously, it's the reverse, but still, it was reported in audits and it was there. But because the two entities are so separate and different, that communication never manifested itself at tax rate setting time, which, by the way, I'm not sure how that gets past the Department of Revenue Administration and the process they go through. I never did get a solid answer about how that was allowed to happen, right? But we're moving to the extent that it helps this even further. We're launching, as we speak, we're starting our implementation of a new ERP, a new enterprise resource planning, but a new accounting solution and human resource solution. And when we complete that transition, we will have blended the school department and the rest of the city into a single implementation and data set. So instead of having to do monthly reconciliations of the school's ledger to the city's, we will be in the same ledger. We're still working on and have some work to do to blend the two charts of accounts to make sure that state reporting is able to be accomplished on both sides of the city. But that will go even that one step further because we'll be all in the same system. There won't be any lag or any reconciliation to be done.
Hey, John, ask the question.
Yes.
Based off of the one thing that Matt, you brought up regarding the information technology and that there was a plan moving forward, I guess I'm wondering if city manager could just give us an update on the progress of that plan, of the, not a deficiency, but the things regarding information technology. And I'm guessing it has to do a lot with the new software we're getting.
And I have the benefit of our CIO standing here, and I may ask Ryan to join. I think the piece that we got in FY25 related to Windows 10 and the phasing out of that.
And shutting that down.
Operating system.
Yeah, to expand on that, it was operating systems for servers and workstations. So Windows 10 was one element. Windows 10 end of life is actually this current month. And we have removed all of our Windows 10 workstations and upgraded to Windows 11 across the entire city. And as far as servers go, we had servers that were 2012 R2 servers. And so based on the name, you can figure out that they were from 2012. A couple of them we were able to immediately get rid of because they were systems that we were able to migrate off of quickly. And then the rest of them are related to the current finance system. So the ERP will solve that problem. And so we're looking at hopefully being fully on the ERP the end of 2026. And we have also purchased, prior to the audit, we've had it since before my tenure, we have extended security updates on the 2012 R2 servers. So any security, you pay for it, but any security updates that come out for those 2012 servers will continue until October 2026.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Any other questions? Thanks for spending some time with us, gentlemen. See
Thank
you
you.
around.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Phil. Have a great day, guys.
All right, take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Next up is review of the committee charge. I mentioned, did everyone have a chance to look at that link? Nick, if you can call.
Yep. This is fun. This-
Page 18, maybe,
1.410.
of the PDF,
18 of the PDF,
please.
would be just past it.
Yeah, right above it, yep.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
6 voting members appointed by the mayor, 3 counselors. Counselors are coterminous with their terms. The citizen members are 3-year terms. City manager shall be a member, but non-voting. Required to fill the vacancies. The primary purpose of the audit committee is to recommend an external auditor to the city council. In the event the auditor identifies any serious exceptions, the audit committee shall advise and work with the city council as to next steps. So that's our scope of work.
Why? It seems like a insignificant job. Okay, and I'd say that respectfully, but number one, why serious exceptions, and why, if you get a management letter every year, why doesn't this committee meet and review the audit, the management letter, and decide whether there's exceptions that need to be met? I mean, I've been on this committee for what, 2 years? First meeting. And because I called you and asked you about it. So, I mean, I don't need work. It's not my point, but I just wonder why it.
That's a good question. Other members?
I'll take a stab. As defined by our external auditors, there haven't been any serious exceptions. We've shared with the council every year in the January timeframe, as we do, the findings of the audit. And we haven't looked to re-solicit for a new auditing firm. So those would be the 2 reasons to me.
I understand, but serious exceptions are what? Your opinion?
The auditor's opinion.
What?
I think the management comments fall into 2 different categories, significant deficiency or
Even
material.
just reading this 24 management letter, not to say they're serious, but it said there were internal controls that need to be addressed. And I don't know, if you're asking people to be on this committee, why not ask them to do something?
Well, I'll give you some background. And former Councilor Huda is here and she can add in public comment. there was a broad charge like that. Including the powers to recommend changes in city organization and structure. And the council felt that those powers were too broad. And those initial powers were from the 2019 council. The 2021 council, which is currently all sitting, all nine, changed the scope. And when we went out to select a new auditor, the committee did have a fair amount of work, creating a matrix to judge the bidders, interviewing the firms, selecting CLA. So, but as former city attorney Bob Sullivan would say, policy runs in the direction the council voted until it's changed. So that's the policy that's in place right now. Now your question's a good one. Should we broaden the scope?
My comment's not because I'm trying to create a witch hunt. It's not what I'm talking about.
No, there, the comments are respectful and good. Is there, if we have citizen knowledge and expertise, should we use it more? And all I can say is that's not the policy direction in the scope of work that we have now. But, you know, elections happen, councils change.
And you're the chairman.
Well, but chairs are elected at the start of each term, so I could be like a mayfly and expire. But it's a good question. Speaking as chair of the committee, we had a long-term engagement with CLA. The audits go to the council every year as the governing body. And the council is, and that's by state law. City policy as well, that we be audited every year. The audits go to the governing body, which is the city council. So I think there's always been a question of who ultimately is responsible for the financial health of the city. And the council that's sitting now felt that that was the job of the city council. So that's how we ended up with this policy. And the process is in place that the auditor's results are shared every year. Now, in the past, it was our practice to have the audit committee be at the work session in January when the audits were read out to the council. And I think it would be a good thing to go back to
I
that.
should do that, yeah.
So that's my take on it, but I'm only one of the three councilors. Next, if there's more discussion on that. You're good. The two vacancies have not been filled. Do we know, I'll ask staff, are we posting those? Have we got postings up?
Yes, I was going to,
Posted the city clerk's office.
yep, I was going to go to the clerk real quick and show you that under. I do this on Friday.
Boards.
I think it's under board.
It's under boards. Thank you. Vacancies, thank you very much.
Two regular members to the audit committee.
They have been, there's another document, there's a 8.5 by 11 that's posted, it's posted physically and and it's, but it has the same information. it has been months. I know because we monitor that, we look, I'm working, work at that, and I think if the clerk were with us, she would say that they broadcast that at each appropriate opportunity, farmers market and things like that when they are out in the community.
But if anyone knows of folks in town, people in town with strong financial backgrounds who would like to serve the city, we will, I'd be happy to give them a call and have coffee with them. Take some time to see if they're interested. Next is renewal of engagement with CLA. Where are we standing?
So this is year number 3. The auditors didn't mention it, but they were with us in the third week of June for some preliminary field work, and they were with us 2 weeks ago for the week. Another three-person team, as you had mentioned, from FY23. They were with us for their core field work. I will tell you that the city has been pleased with their timelines and responsiveness. You know that we publish each year the annual comprehensive financial report, the ACFR, and we publish it in a timeline that allows it to make its way to the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, prior to the end of the calendar year. We also publish a popular annual financial report, the PAFR. Both of those have been awarded and recognized by GFOA for a number of years. So that deadline is really important to us, and CLA has been excellent in helping to support and drive the process to make sure that the financials are ready in a timeline so that the document can be published and then made public. And we have brought that successfully to the council. And so given what I mentioned a few minutes ago, which is we are launching what we anticipate to be a 3 to 5 year implementation of new accounting systems. The core accounting and payroll will take the next couple of cycles, couple of years. HR will join the water sewer billing. And then on the back end of that, we expect to add ancillary systems, replacing legacy systems in the areas of tax and assessing, et cetera. We've spoken to the city of Concord at the beginning of our research. Concord has just finished a 5-year process, adding number of ancillary systems. So we expect at least 3 years. And as we march into that, we are pleased with CLA and eager to have somebody that stays with us so that we aren't changing horses in midstream as we are literally changing the stream. And so we intend to ask CLA to renew that for another 3 years. And we'll bring to the council a proposal like a 3-year with the opportunity to extend for up to another 1 or 2 or 3 years to create flexibility on the back end.
So their CLA's engagement ends what?
It ends with this fiscal 25 review that they're doing now. So they will wrap up, publish to us. It will go to GFOA at Christmas. It will be with you on the council on a January agenda. They will still be with us for several months after that because they come back to complete the single audit of federal funding. They'll do that in the February, March, April timeframe. But their engagement will essentially end by June 30th of 26, unless we take steps to renew to move forward with the FY26 audit.
Are there other contenders out there? We take a look at.
So my understanding is through the last process, which I wasn't involved. I was in your school department then, but there wasn't a lot of competition, especially given the fact that we're an ACFR community with that extensive expectation.
And the other
Is that
company
fair?
we used to use was going through a merger 3 years ago, and they've gone through another one
Another one since.
since then. So they've gone through 2 mergers in the last 3 years.
Did I hear you say the audit firm before was Melanson?
Yes,
Yeah.
originally. Yep.
They were They were merged into Markham, who I think recently was merged into CBIZ.
Yes. I only know this because RPC uses them for their audit.
It's worth saying on behalf of staff that, and the auditor for that matter, I had a conversation with our partner, Matt. It can be.
Get rid of this.
Yeah, thank you. It's a significant lift on their part and ours to pause to fully equip a new audit firm to come in. It's an excellent exercise, but I wouldn't want to do it in the middle of an ERP implementation, changing the charts for some period of months. We will likely be live in a new accounting system with a new chart of accounts, but we will be generating payroll in two sides, schools and city, using the old charts and have to migrate post into the new ledger across two different crosswalks. We'll do that for 6 months and we'll do it carefully and well, I'm sure, but having an auditor who's with us walking into that, knowing what the accounts look like, will be a help, because they'll be uniquely positioned to tell us if we miss something or if there's, any concerns in the conversions and transitions. So we're hopeful to keep them at least through the cycles that will be impacted by this transition.
So we're looking for like 3 years with the same firm moving forward.
Would that be your recommendation?
That would be 3 years plus, I think what I would anticipate, now we didn't this time, but what I've seen in the past is a 3-year plus, so that you have the opportunity for another year or 2 or 3 to extend. But that's just been the experience that I've had, and we certainly would want at least the 3 to get through the heart of the transition.
If we were gonna have competitive bidding again, what kind of timeline would there be?
I would suggest that if we were going to competitively bid it, we'd want to do so in the same timeframe we're finishing this audit, between now and the first of the year, so that we had an engagement sometime in the early spring for July 1st.
I think he's being overly kind. I think we would have started already to have solicited a process. But I think we're 3 years into a 3-year commitment with this firm. We feel comfortable. I think they feel comfortable. I think looking for another 3 is certainly industry standard, not out of the norm.
Yeah. And the other player seems to
Have gone away.
keep going through mergers.
And it's my fear, and that was our fear 3 years ago, so their track records, just a lot of mergers, so you get a lot of changeover, so I would be afraid with us going through a change that something might slip through the cracks on their end, and that would be my concern. If they actually are gonna stay one company for more than a year and a half. Be nice.
Yeah, and
I guess my only concern would be, what would our cost be? Could we get them to put in for, or just at least have us take a look at what the cost change would be? It would be nice to know that as well.
The existing contract was a fixed rate relationship with a $5,000 escalator each year. And Matt, as the signing partner, he stands ready. He understood that it would be a conversation, and he's eager to propose. So we haven't had any conversation about what the prevailing, market is, or what they might recommend. But I will say, and would say to him as well, and I said this to Mr. Brabant earlier, as the meeting was getting ready. The auditors were here 2 weeks ago, and they commented again that we are one of the very few clients that they arrive on scene. The books are closed, closing entries are made, reports are finished. In many municipal cases, when they arrive, the auditors end up doing final closing before they can audit the financials. And in our case, that's all done.
This will go down.
So it should, yeah. So I certainly will
Always
use
looking
that.
for a bargain.
I will use that on Matt. I think that we ought to be easier than the other guys he's dealing with. So
Should be reflected in the cost. I agree.
Counselor Denton or thoughts on this?
Sorry.
I, Counselor Denton or Don, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd simply add, I've been very content with our selection several years ago, and it's worked out well. And given the current situation, I think it'll continue to work out well.
Well, I think we probably should make a recommendation to the council.
In the end, it's a full council decision, no
Right.
matter what. So they're gonna,
Recommendation is,
do you want to vote a motion to send to the council our recommendation that we renew with CLA for at least 3 more years?
If you would make that
I think I
motion.
just did.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay. And all in favor?
I,
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
4-0 you had.
Public comment?
Sir,
Counselor Huda. Name and address, please.
Peter Huda, Portsmouth. First, I'd like to say I am elated to see the city manager here and so many fun. This is probably the first time that we've had such a attendance, and I'm excited about it. So, the first thing I'd like to address are some of the questions that your public member had. According to our, and you made these changes, Counselor Tabor. According to our boards and members' creations, section 1302, appointments and tenure. Basically, committees and boards, the first meeting of the board, commission, or authority shall be in January of each year. Now, to his point, there hasn't been a meeting since 23. At that point, you elect a chair. So since you haven't had one in 2-3 years, I ask, how did you get elected as the chair going forward? First thing. The next thing, according to this, the attendance records of boards and commissions shall be reported to the city council on an annual basis. So since you didn't have a meeting, you're basically not in compliance with our admin code. So that's the first thing I'm gonna hit. The next thing I'm gonna hit is, you should have 6 members. And according to your agenda here, you only have 2, you're looking for 2 public resident positions, and you have been for quite a while, but obviously they left because you weren't having any meetings and they did not want to stand for that. So, the last thing I want to do here is give us a time frame of what we're talking about here. So we are in the 4th month, 3.5 month of FY 26. We just heard on the report of FY 24. So from my perspective, I want to know up to date where we are in FY 25 and the status of the audit. The other thing that I want to call to your attention is what is on the city website. There has not been a report published in 8 months. So as a resident and taxpayer, I have no idea where we are against budget for FY 25 or FY 26. So that's a big question in my mind. Now, I'm gonna just say this right out because the excuse that you're transferring to another system doesn't work. And your statement here, Mr. Looney, on payroll, you're running on 2 systems and you're doing all that, that's called running in parallel. And basically, until you cut over to a new system, You're gonna have to do that. So my question is, why do we not have our reports out there for the public to see in 8 months? The next question I would have is, where are we on FY 25? It closed June. By September, we should have had preliminary numbers reported to the public. Budget versus actual. What did we spend? What did you spend taxpayer money on? And do you have a surplus or a deficit? I really don't think that's too much to ask. And on the auditor side, I have the master agreement from last time. This master agreement does not expire till May 15, 2023. And as a committee, you just voted to move forward with this. Now you don't even have a proposal. So my question would be, what are you voting on to move forward on as a committee? And basically, how could you do that? And I did not hear our other member vote on this.
I don't vote.
Not you,
Mr.
Mr.
He voted, he raised his hand.
Okay. The last thing I would ask you to do when you get your, put in your proposal or your request from these auditors, since we have not seen any reporting since February, I would like to request, as a taxpayer, a full financial audit, not just a compliance audit, a full financial audit. Because, like I said, the taxpayers have no idea where we are because the reports are not out there on the website, sir. I would address some of the other questions that your other member had. And the answers were very interesting. I will just let that go because I think this is more important to address than this. I also would like to update you on since you haven't had a meeting and you haven't put anything out, how that is affected by the minutes being taken under 91A. So generally, they have to be out in, the minutes from the meeting have to be out in 5 days. You're presenting the minutes from the meeting from 2023. So you being on the governance committee, I'm struggling with this, Councilor Tabor. And I'd really like to know if we can follow our own regulations that we put in on this. So those are the questions I would have. I was not able to address some of the things that were said here, but going forward, these are the requests that I would have as a resident and taxpayer to get an idea of where you are. I would also note that I'm very well aware that the city manager and deputy city manager of finance have been out already discussing the next budget cycle, which is 27. So it's a struggle not knowing where we are in 25 and ending and already trying to move up FY 27. I understand the procedure. I understand the reasons why, but as a taxpayer, I'd like to know where we are. And I'd like to know when the reports are going to be coming out. Thank you.
Former Councilor Huda. Follow-up questions on that?
Only that I owe you some reports. I apologize, and I'll make sure that the council has information and reports right away. The fiscal 25 audit results traditionally, as I understand it, come out audited, and so you'll see that. As I mentioned, that the auditor was here doing field work 2 weeks back. We'll be marching through tax rate setting soon, the completion of the audit report and the publication of the ACFR by December. You'll have that in your your January meeting, but
Prelim, Mr. Looney.
but monthly reports ought to be out there absolutely for July, August, and September. So let me follow up.
Right, those are the monthly reports that we get on revenue and spending.
Amen. Yep.
Okay, so that answers that. I think the only other question is, how often should we meet? And, some city committees have by ordinance how often they meet. We don't. And our scope of work is to select an auditor. So. But, you know, I think we need to weigh that with points about minutes being old is well taken, I think. And the reason we're here is one of our members said we probably should get together and look at our work that we have to do. So.
I don't know, my perspective is that this isn't a committee that reviews the monthly financials or the results compared to budget or what have you. But I do think that it's a good idea for this group to meet to review the management letter and to read and to suggest comments about that. Whether there's, in your mind, they're serious or not.
Yeah. And
So
I think that's something that to me, we should get our membership up, and we should get back to the practice of the audit committee sitting in on the presentation of the audit. Then I think the committee can decide if they want to separately meet on the management.
If I could speak to that, the timing is such that we typically get material from CLA in the very late December or super early January timeframe. And we would schedule a joint presentation with the audit committee and the city council at the second January meeting. If the audit committee wanted to meet to discuss the management letter in between when the information is dropped to that second council meeting, and we're working to establish the 2026 calendar shortly, that could be something we do.
I mean, we could meet before the management letter is presented to the full council.
Right, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
That would be within the purview, sure.
well, Council Morrow, thoughts?
Sure.
Okay.
If there's time in the calendar, then yeah.
Yep. Councilor Denton, thoughts on that?
He's muted.
He's muted.
Yeah, I was muted there. No, I would be fine with that if there's time on the calendar.
All right, let's do that then. Okay. Is there other public comment? Anybody on Zoom? Nathan?
No, there's not.
Welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.